Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hockey News Cheat Sheet brought to you by Stix.com. That's Stix.com. I'm George Nassios, and as always, joined by my co-host Andrew McInnis. And Andrew, really interesting movement in the odds for the Hart Trophy favorite taking place in light of Leon Draisaitl's injury. For the first time this season, Connor Hellebuyck, a goalie, is now the favorite to win the Hart. Hellebuyck has a .924 save percentage, 2.06 goals against, and is tied his career high in shutouts with 6. And he has 41 wins. He could tie the record for most wins by a goalie in a season. Will he become the first goaltender to win the Hart Trophy since Carey Price in 2015?
I think he has a really good chance. And of course, the odds are reflecting it, George. But I mean, what this guy has done this season, it's not just Vezina worthy, it's Hart worthy. The numbers he's putting up, the consistency level we've seen. But I think it also adds to the fact that one thing interesting about this Winnipeg team, they have not been a very good back-to-back team. They have not been a very good third game in 4 nights team. And you hate to throw Eric Comrie under the bus, but let's be honest, when they have a fresh team and they have a fresh Connor Hellebuyck, I'll take this team over a lot of teams in the National Hockey League. So it's very hard for a goaltender to win this award. And you and I always talk about, do some of these awards end up actually being what their true name is of the award, the MVP? You know, that's what this really is. What does it take for a goaltender to win it? And we're going to talk about the Calder as well. I think it's rightfully deserving that he has these odds the way that they are right now, and especially for the way he's leading this team and some of the numbers they put up. And I know that Winnipeg started off the year by scoring goals in bunches. There was actually a streak where they were hitting their team total over 3.5 and the majority of their wins. But you take a look at it now, they've been able to pull off 2-1, 3-2, 3-1 type of games. And let's be honest, in hockey these days, it's hard to win consistently when you're playing low-scoring games. Connor Hellebuyck does that for these guys. But of course, the flip side of the coin, looking at the other guys, Draisaitl's injury kind of hurts him a little bit. But
Yeah.
McKinnon and this Avalanche team down the stretch, they're not really in a spot to sit back. They're not really in a spot to just be like, okay, we're going to exhale and wait for the playoffs. Those players and the coaching staff on Colorado have made it very clear they're in playoff mode right now. So unlike teams, like competing for wild card spots, they're competing for something in their own. And that's just the position they're going to fall in the Western Conference. So are we pretty much buying at the ultimate low spot here? Well, maybe. But I do think Hellebuyck is the MVP right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all going to depend on when Draisaitl comes back, right? Which we don't really know. We know he's probably going to miss 3 more games for sure. It's so tough to guess with the way teams hide injuries from fans and the media these days. So it looked like Draisaitl, even given the incredible season Hellebuyck was having, he was a runaway favorite to win the Hart. But he misses 10 games here. He had a chance at 60 goals. Now he's sitting at 49. He comes back with 2 or 3 games left. Like, he might not even get to 50. So I think it's very, I think it all depends on when Draisaitl comes back. McKinnon's going to run away with the Art Ross trophy. We know that. I just think he won it last year. He'll have to explode down the stretch to take over Hellebuyck. I think this was Draisaitl's award, and it all depends on when he comes back from injury, and that at this point is anyone's guess. Another trophy where the odds have narrowed a ton. Macklin Celebrini has been such a huge favorite in the Calder Trophy award for months now, it seems like. But they are extremely tight right now. And it's not between him and Matvei Michkov, who was before. It's now Lane Hutson, who has caught him in the Calder Trophy odds. Celebrini is a -120 favorite, and Hudson's around -110 at most sports books. Hutson has the most points of any rookie right now as a defenseman, 53 points in 69 games played, while Celebrini is one back at 52 points, but he has missed some games. He's only played 58 games. Since January 1st, their production has been practically identical. Who has made a better case in your mind, Andrew, in the second half of the season to be given this award?
Well, I think that you have to ask yourselves, how much does it matter that one team is fighting for the playoffs? And I've always been of the belief that it shouldn't matter. But I'm going to tell you from, a perspective of, yeah, Lane Hudson plays on the team that I cheer for. But a lot of times these awards go to the player that is kind of contributing more to their team having success. I used to think it was the opposite. I used to think it was like, okay, if you are a player and you are on a bad team and you stand out, then that can help get you the stats. But I do think that if you look at things and you compare these two players and the stats that they're putting up, if an NBA player is averaging 30 points a game, but they're playing for the Washington Wizards, nobody cares because that player is not playing for the LA Lakers.
Of course.
And that's a little bit kind of what I see here in this situation. You've got the Montreal Canadiens needing a goal, dying for a goal. Who do they have on the ice? Who do they have on the PP1? So that to me is a little bit interesting. But I will say the goals, I know he's a defenseman. He has like no goals, Lane Hudson. And Celebrini has done it all. Obviously, the assists, the goals. And I think that as well, the way that he's just slotted himself in, cemented himself into the lineup with the San Jose Sharks, he hasn't really had that moment all year where anybody has questioned him. I look forward to seeing if there's any type of sophomore slump or anything like that. But let's be honest, George, throughout the entire season, it's been the Celebrini show, and he's had his buddy Will Smith right alongside him. The story with how Tyler Toffoli has been that great mentor for both those players has been really fun to watch. But I really do think that in this scenario, unless the Habs on this 4-game road trip they're currently on just absolutely fall off a cliff, the longer the Canadiens stay in the playoff picture, in the playoff mix, the more that benefits. I was watching a podcast that said this: the Flames make the playoffs, Wolf should be in. It should win the Calder. The Habs make the playoffs, Lane Hudson should win the Calder. If the Flames or Habs both miss, Celebrini should be the guy that wins the Calder. What are your thoughts on that statement?
I'm going to disagree with the Hudson part. This is Hudson's award. He hasn't scored hardly any goals. He's got 5 goals, and I think he didn't score his first career goal till like maybe between game 30 and 40 of the season. So he has produced more in the second half when it comes to goal scoring. And like you mentioned, he's a defenseman. We should expect forwards to score triple or quadruple the amount of goals that defensemen should have. We should also expect forwards to get more points. There's more responsibility, obviously, in defensive end for a defenseman. Now he's sheltered a bit, playing with a veteran mostly in Mike Matheson in Montreal, but he's also playing over 20 minutes a night on a team competing for a playoff spot with only weeks to go in the regular season. Even if they lose their next 3 games, they're still going to be in the playoff race. They currently have, based on points per game, the final wildcard spot in the East. So I definitely think this is Hudson's award. I think people fall in love with the forwards and the goals and maybe the flashiness, but to me, Hudson has some flashiness to his game as well. Now, when it comes to Dustin Wolf, that's an interesting point to raise. I think absolutely he should be in the conversation if Calgary sneaks into the playoffs. And they have games in hand on St. Louis. I know St. Louis has been red hot, and they've got that final wild card spot in the West right now. But Dustin Wolf, if you compare his games to the backup in Calgary, which the name eludes me right now, if you can maybe help me out, but they've won more games, got more points. Dan Vladar, thank you to our producer Eric. They've won more games. They allow less goals. He's got a better goals against, better save percentage when he's in net. So he is, and a goalie, when it comes down to it, is probably the most important part of your team. So I would say this: bet money on Hudson and then sprinkle a little bit on Dustin Wolf, because at most sportsbook, he's ranging from 17-1 to 21-1 to win the Calder. They sneak in the playoff spot. You put $10 on them and you're getting paid 20-1. It's $200 for a $10 bet. So that's what I'd say. I'm not anti-Macklin Celebrini. I think he's a great player and he's going to be amazing. But I just think the other 2 guys, considering what they're doing, deserve more respect and that they should be the Calder Trophy favorites right now.
Yes. And I will say that Lane Hudson has gotten a lot better in his own end. And I feel like, because of social media and because of fan bases always going back and forth, and I'm one of those fans going back and forth with other fan bases, people said that, hey, this guy is not playing defense. This guy is a defenseman. He should be a forward. That is the biggest false statement being made and floated around hockey social media right now for his size, the way he's learned to use his stick, the way he's shutting down guys. If you look at it, guys like Savard and Matheson and Carrier, the older guys have actually been the ones struggling the most lately. Obviously, Matheson's been great, and they let the workload he gets, and I have liked Carrier, but the loss that the Canadians suffered to the St. Louis Blues, the same defensive pairing was a -4.
Yeah.
Right. And you mentioned that Matheson's been playing with Hudson, but he's also been playing with Struble quite a bit. And it's been kind of cool to see because Struble is mostly a defensive defenseman. So what's nice about that is even though it's kind of two young guys together, it's like, hey, if you want to go up and be a part of the rush, I've got your back. I'm going to sit back and protect our end. So when you have one defensive defenseman with one offensive defenseman, it works out really well together. So I think it's been really good. And I think he's really figured out when the moments are to jump in the rush and when the moments are to kind of relax a little bit. When to dump the puck in. He's not really a dump the puck in kind of guy. We both know that, but I feel like he's become a lot smarter with those situations.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the Calder is definitely Hudson's award to win, but we'll see how it plays out with the rest of the season. Now, we just mentioned the St. Louis Blues, best team in the NHL since the Four Nations, since players have come back from the Four Nations face-off. They've won 6 in a row, 8 1-1 in their last 10. 3-point lead over the Canucks for the second wildcard spot in the West. And actually, based on points per game, the Flames might be a bit closer because they have even an extra game in hand. The Blues' odds to make the playoffs have improved to plus 104. They're still paying plus money. Is it a good time to bet on the Blues?
If you can find the Blues at any sports book at plus money, you bet that. That's my statement. I think that the Flames, I'm seeing plus 180 right now. The Vancouver Canucks, even if they put a little run together, I think they're a little bit too far behind. This St. Louis,
banged up too.
They're banged up, exactly. And that's the thing is that they're going to have the wins every now and then. They're going to play tight games. They're going to go out, I believe, with a sense of pride. But at this current number, if you can find a book giving you a plus, and we have, then you bet the St. Louis Blues. And the best part about this team right now is that it's not just one reason why they're winning games. It's not just Binnington. It's not just their top guys. It's multiple players, multiple reasons why this team is having success. Early on during their streak, George, I was kind of giving them a little bit of crap because I was like, they're only beating non-playoff teams. And then they started beating everybody. Anybody that was in front of them, they started to take them down. So that level of consistency is what I've been the most impressed with. The Calgary Flames, hats off to them. But can they maintain what they're doing right now? They had that win on Tuesday night over the Kraken, come back from behind, a great road trip. But I think that this Calgary Flames team would have to pull off something incredibly special to actually come close to making it. Whereas the St. Louis Blues, they just have to keep riding the wave that they're on right now, and I think they're going to be just fine. And shout out to Jim Montgomery, man, because everyone talked about that whole situation, people saying, oh, well, he wasn't going to sign back anyway. Whatever your thoughts are right now, the Bruins ended up being sellers. The Bruins have been underdogs against teams like the Anaheim Ducks lately. Meanwhile, the St. Louis Blues are in a playoff spot. That's impressive.
Yeah, I would definitely concur with you. Take the Blues at plus money. I don't think the Vancouver Canucks are getting there at all. The Flames have overachieved all season. It's amazing to see what they've done. I just think the Blues have put themselves in the best position to make the playoffs. And like you said, they're beating everybody and not just skating by. They're slapping teams in the face like they did to the Montreal Canadiens the other night. Just had to throw that in there for you. Now we're going to move on to one of the best teams in the East, the Washington Capitals. They became the first team to clinch a playoff spot on March 21st, and their odds to win 2+ playoff series are at plus 160. This is a team that hasn't got a lot of respect all year. They're tied with the Carolina Hurricanes and just slightly behind the Florida Panthers to win 2+ series. The Panthers are at plus 110. Even though the Caps have been consistently one of the best teams in the East all season, do you think that they deserve to have such strong odds to have this type of success in the playoffs to win 2 or more playoff series?
I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that as a Canadiens fan, I'm hoping to play. I'd rather play the Capitals than I would rather play the Panthers in round one. That's just a fact. But I also think that's matchup based. But one thing I will say is that this Capitals team haven't had many hiccups. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I can just think off the top of my head, they haven't had many long losing streaks. This is a team that you want to bet on after they drop a couple games. After they even drop one tough loss, they're a team that bounces back. And that's what's made them so impressive. Last year, when they just limped in like a wounded soldier into the playoffs, their goal differential was it was out of this world in a bad way. It didn't make any sense.
It had
But
to be
now
one of the worst goal differentials
yeah,
for a team to make the playoffs in like a decade.
it was wild. It was wild. So now looking at this, I think that they are a team that deserve the respect they're getting, deserve these odds. I can't see them getting upset in round one. I could see it being a little bit tighter than people think. And then, so when you think about it like this, George, you're pretty much betting plus 160 on will they win their second round.
Yeah.
Again, look, as a Canadians fan, I think it's healthy for me to talk about it. It makes the show fun. I let everybody know I'm a fan. I think that wild card spot, it could be a little bit like, whether it's the Islanders, Canadians, Rangers, those teams are going to be kind of riding a high, right? Playing with nothing to lose. But last year, that was the Capitals. They were just happy to be there. They were happy to be in the playoffs. This year, they're going there with a purpose. They're going there with a reason. I will say this. One thing that a lot of sports betting people I've always spoke to talk about, whether it's playoff round betting, whether it's betting a future on a team to win the Stanley Cup, NBA championship, Super Bowl, whatever it might be, some people will tell you, based on the odds that you expect to see, you're better off betting round by round and carrying your money over, or betting game by game and carrying your money over. So sometimes you see odds, like let's say the top 3 or 4 teams to win the Stanley Cup right now. And if you like the top, like let's say you like Florida, right, to win the Stanley Cup, you're better off just betting them to win round 1 and then using that money you won to win round 2, using that money you won to win round 3, because those odds accumulatively will earn you far more money than it will. And you get the idea to be like, I want to walk away, like deal or no deal. So I think it could be an opportunity to do that. But again, I think that you're pretty much getting a plus 160 ticket to win the second round. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, interesting. I didn't think about it that way. If we're just talking strictly about the bet, I kind of agree with you. I think Washington's going to win the first round. I think everybody's been waiting for them to fall off the whole year until the last month, where people have realized, hey, this team's good. And they're built for the playoffs. They're big, they're heavy, they're tough, they've got great goaltending. So to me, they're built for the playoffs. I'll say this. I see an inevitable matchup between the Caps and Hurricanes in round 2. And I think the Hurricanes would take that one personally. So I wouldn't be taking the Caps, but interesting the way you suggested to bet accumulatively as the rounds go on as a way to be making your bets throughout the playoffs. So that's something our listeners should definitely, maybe heed from some advice, some good advice from you from. We're going to go from one of the best teams in the NHL, or the best team, to 2 of the worst. 2 teams were officially eliminated from contention last week: the Chicago Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks are at minus 420 to finish last in the standings, while the Blackhawks are plus 300 to slip beneath them. The Blackhawks currently with 51 points, the Sharks with 47 points. Would you rather bet on the Sharks in this final stretch to finish last at minus 420 odds, or roll the dice on the Blackhawks at plus 300 odds?
It's tough. Those odds are brutal. Odds are brutal. I was trying to think.
Would you rather die by firing squad or lethal injection, Andrew?
Yeah. Would you rather tell somebody you bet a plus 400 loser, or tell somebody or tell someone you bet a minus 400 winner? Looking at some of these odds, I are plus 300. I just think that ultimately this Blackhawks team has it in them to show a bit more pride towards the end of the season. Like when it comes down to the final 2 or 3 weeks of the season, or the final, like, let's say 8 games, this is going to be a Hawks team that's going to be like, wow, I mean, they beat that team. No, I can't believe, they're a plus 250 and they only kept it within 1 goal. And then late they scored a goal. They seem to be that team that could play spoiler, when the Canadians are playing the Hawks. I'm just speaking theoretically. And then they need that dire point. The Hawks come out of nowhere and beat them, or same thing if they're playing the Flames or the Blues or whoever it might be. So I just see the Hawks being that team that plays with the pride all the way until the final puck drop. Whereas the San Jose Sharks, I just simply don't think they have it in them. We talk about the moves that they made at the trade deadline as well that negatively impacted them. The only thing I'll say that I've been saying all year on the show is that they've been having fun. Like, this is a tank that's gone very well. Like, if you're a fan, I know someone that lives in San Jose actually going to school out there, and they said, you know what? The games are fun again. The
Yeah,
games are fun to go to, right?
I
And
think
that's a
that's a
big
big
difference.
difference between the two teams. I think the Sharks are having a bit of fun, and the Blackhawks just can't wait for the season to end. I
Yeah.
agree with you on that one.
But you know that a guy like Bedard, as much as he wouldn't want to hear this, the stats matter, right? And some of these guys, like when he scores a goal in the 78th game of the year, and then 2 years from now, you and I are talking about, well, how did Bedard do 2 years ago? And we say how many goals he got. We're not going to say, well, did he get that goal in the last game of the year? It's just
Yeah.
about how many goals he got. So I think some of these guys might be kind of stat stuffers near the end of the season.
Yeah, it's an interesting point to bring up about Bedard because he's eligible for a contract extension in the summer, and he hasn't exactly had a year that's made him a ton of money. So it'll be interesting to see what the Blackhawks do with that. Based on the bet, I'm taking the Sharks to finish last. I just think the Blackhawks win 2 games that would force the Sharks to go about 500 for the rest of the season. A 4-point gap between two teams that are terrible and have trouble winning one game. I'm gonna expect the team that's worse to finish last. So the odds aren't great, but if you're betting one, I'm betting the Sharks to finish last. Sports books really unsure about one of the teams in the playoffs, the Toronto Maple Leafs. How is this team going to do in the playoffs this season, considering their recent performances and who they could possibly match up with? The Leafs' odds to win 1+ playoff series are at -118, while their odds to be eliminated in the first round again are at -108. Do you think these odds accurately reflect how this Maple Leafs team has played as of late? And which side would you rather bet on?
Look, I've been talking all year long about how important it is for them to win the division. And I'm not sure if I'm going to end up being correct about what I initially thought. I thought they had it in them to win that division. Now it's an absolute dogfight for a team to
It is.
win that division. Um, I don't think the Maple Leafs win the first round against Tampa Bay if that's what ends up happening. I think they have success in the playoffs and could actually make a real deal push if they win the first spot in the division, get to play a wild card team, get some swagger, move on to the second round, and go forwards there. So, when it comes down to it and looking at these odds, George, to win 1+ playoff series at -118, I might want to go with the no, because where it's currently sitting, I think Florida wins, and I think Tampa Bay takes them out. I've been preaching to people on every piece of content that I do that I think the Tampa Bay Lightning to win the Stanley Cup currently have the best long shot odds out of every team in the league. Tampa Bay is being discounted. They're a team that still has Vasilevsky. They're a team that still has Braden Point, Kucherov, Jake Kensel added to the roster, Anthony Cirelli, who played on Team Canada. And let's not forget about John Cooper. So I know I'm kind of talking about Tampa when that was irrelevant to the question, but I do think that first round matchup, if they get it, I would personally have Tampa favored. So it could not be more important for the Maple Leafs to win the division. So I'm kind of politically answering your question here. If they win the division, I like them to do well. If they don't win the division, I think it's 7 games and then Cancun.
You don't have that choice right now. You got to bet on it right now. You taking them to win a round or not?
No, they're not going to win the division. They're not going to win the first round.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to say, regardless of whether they win the division or not, they're going to win a round. And I
Okay.
know I am a Maple Leafs fan, so I'm going to disclose that. But I haven't been on that wagon saying they're going to win in the playoffs for years past, or for 1 or 2 years past, just because of the reputation they've built for themselves. I think this year is going to be a little different. I think the defense is the best it's ever been. I think the players are buying into Berube's team concept. And if they do end up finishing first, they're going to likely play Ottawa, which would be a massive upset if they lose to them. And if they're playing Tampa, I think they should still be. I would expect them to beat Tampa, although it's more of a coin flip. I think the time's now for the Leafs if they don't win it. And it's interesting to hear the players talk in interviews about what's going on when they're losing games or winning games in the season. A player like William Nylander, who's just throwing the team on his back, it seems like. And he just says, doesn't matter, first, second, third. We're going to meet good teams in the playoffs. You got to beat our goal isn't to win one round, it's to win the Stanley Cup. Where a guy like Bobby McMahon, a little new to the fold, is talking about how important it is to finish in first place. So I think the Leafs are winning a round. I don't know. I don't want to see what's going to happen this time around if the Leafs don't win a round. Like the ramifications with Mitch Marner being a free agent in the offseason should be huge. But hey, they seem to run it back every year. So you're taking them not to win a round. I am taking them to win a round. Full disclosure, I am a Leafs fan. So everybody watching, take my advice, I guess, with a grain of salt.
One thing I will say, George, and I want to say this because obviously I'm a Habs fan. I make my jokes towards the Leafs, vice versa with Leafs and Habs fans. But I truly believe that this season, and I say this all the time, and people joke around, but I've seen Leafs fans starting to say this as well, and even Leafs media. 82 games plus the preseason, that's all one big preseason. This has been the preseason. You know, in the Matthews era, to win one round, nobody cares about this game and this loss and that loss and this player and that hat trick and that 2 goals and McMahon doing this. Nobody cares. So picking up Carlo and picking up Scott Laughton, like I see Leaf fans going crazy about, oh man, like I really don't know about Scott Laughton. At the end of the day, they had to pick up somebody because they have to win a round, they have to improve, they have to move forward. So Scott Laughton did not get added for game 72 of the regular season. He got added for the playoffs. So as much as I'm saying what I said about that matchup versus Tampa, this team is playing for the playoffs. They picked up Craig Berube for the playoffs. They added Brandon Carlo for the playoffs. So all of this has to do with the playoffs. Would they like to kind of have some of these hiccups like a blowout loss against Nashville? Probably not. But at the end of the day, no one's going to care about any of that if they have success in the playoffs. But also, I'm starting to realize that Leafs fans, they don't care about the regular season anymore. They just care about the playoffs.
Yeah, it definitely is just about the playoffs. I wouldn't call that a blowout loss to Nashville, but anyway, I digress. We'll move on.
Wasn't it 6-2? It was 6-2, wasn't it?
Did it end up 6-2? What, with 2 empty netters?
Yeah, I think so. 6-2.
Okay.
6-2.
We'll move on to the Vegas Golden Knights anyway. They're on pace to win their 4th Pacific Division title in just 8 years of being a franchise. Here we are talking about the Leafs winning the Atlantic Division for the first time ever since the Atlantic Division's been made, I think. And Vegas is on pace to win the Pacific for the 4th time in 8 years of being a franchise. It's crazy. They currently have the 4th best odds behind the Avs, the Oilers, and the Stars to win the Western Conference Final this year at plus 500. Is this Vegas team flying under the radar as a potential pick to make it back to the Stanley Cup Final?
Oh, I think they certainly are. I mean, there's just no denying it. There's no denying that this team is flying under the radar. And I think when you look at kind of what they have to offer and their lineup from top to bottom, they have a lot of contributors. And one thing that I look at a lot when I'm looking at the NHL these days is 5-on-5 play. Power play is so important. Penalty kill, of course, is so important. But when I look at this Vegas Golden Knights team, I use Natural Stat Trick. I use MoneyPuck.com. I use multiple different websites, RotoWire. This team seems to always be top 5 in goals for, expected goals, goals for percentage, the Corsi numbers, everything 5-on-5. And so when you look at certain numbers for certain players, certain teams, you think to yourselves, man, they really rely on the power play a lot. And what's one thing that goes away a lot in the playoffs? The whistle. The whistle goes away, right? And obviously power plays are important in the playoffs, but if you're a team that's relying on being handed 4 or 5 power play opportunities in the playoffs, good luck to you, because Wes McCauley might be making 1 or 2 all game and just skate around getting cardio, and he wants to enjoy some good old-fashioned hockey. I think as far as the Western Conference odds are concerned, this team is being forgotten about. This team is kind of being discounted a little bit. But one thing people worry about with the Knights this year, and they have the past few years as well, it seems like, is their health, injuries. If one player goes down, how does that impact them? They're a team that likes to play as one. I know they have Jack Eichel. I know they have Mark Stone and some successful top players, but they're a team that really can feel the impact when one key player goes down. But I give them a lot of credit, and I just love their 5-on-5 play. I mean, I found out the other day, I was shocked by this news, George, that Sidney Crosby right now has the most 5-on-5 points in the league.
I saw that as well.
What? What? I had no clue. I'm the biggest Sidney Crosby fan. I had no clue. That goes to show how much some of these top teams and top dogs really feed off of the power play.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'd say bet it. Give me the plus 500 odds. Bet it. Vegas is stacked. They are stacked. They're not my choice to win the West. I'm picking Dallas, but at plus 500, bet them. I looked at their roster compared to 2 years ago when they won the Stanley Cup final, and I think they're just as good, if not better, taking into account that some of the players have aged, some of the players are gone. You talked about the injuries, big injury in the past few days to Thomas Hertl, their second line center. They're going to need him back to make a serious run. Obviously, they lost Chandler Stevenson. Hertl's come in and been probably a better player than Chandler Stevenson. I don't think William Karlsson is really a second line center, or Brett Howden, so I think they'll need Hertl back. But I think they will get him back in time for the playoffs. Their defense is unreal, better than it was a couple of years ago. They have the experience of winning Stanley Cup. So they are not my pick, but at plus 500, they're definitely worth a bet. So they are stacked. Bet Vegas at plus 500 while you can get the odds at that price. We're going to move on to the Conn Smythe future. And last year, Connor McDavid won it on a losing team. The odds for any player to win the Conn Smythe this year on a losing team are at plus 950. Other than Connor McDavid, only Jean-Sebastien Giguère has won the Conn Smythe Trophy on a losing team in the past 25 years. Is there any player other than McDavid that is capable of winning this award, even if his team loses?
Well, I think back to a guy that won the Stanley Cup, but did not win the Conn Smythe Trophy. And I think about the NBA, and I think about when the Warriors won the NBA championship, and Steph Curry did not win the MVP of the playoffs. Well, Nathan McKinnon doesn't have a Conn Smythe Trophy under his belt. If he makes it to the finals and they're playing a Florida, a Carolina, a Toronto, if that happens, a Washington, whoever it may be, and he puts up phenomenal numbers, but they still get goalied in game 6 and 7. They still can't find a way to get the job done. And as far as the Eastern Conference team, if it's very dispersed, it wouldn't shock me to see him. I mean, we know what kind of playoff gamer he is. It would be kind of a weird way to win your first Conn Smythe when you don't even win. And, people were upset about McDavid not going out to get it. Could you imagine McKinnon? He wouldn't be going out to get that either.
Yeah, a lot of unsolicited props to your Nova Scotia boys in this episode of the Hockey News Cheat Sheet.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a possibility, and goalies also are the ones to watch usually to win Conn Smythes on losing teams.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having seen that it happened for the first time in over 20 years last year, I wouldn't bet on it happening in back-to-back years. So that's probably one bet I'd stay away from. So
what about Ottinger? I mean, you talk about Dallas. You mentioned Dallas for a Western Conference team, and of course, I like Dallas as well. So I love the joke about my Nova Scotia boys, but I feel like certain players that can really take over a game. Like, what if Dallas, even though they've loaded up, they've got Rantanen now, they have several guys. What if Dallas just can't find the back of the net? What if they make it all the way to the finals against somebody and they just can't score? Right? They just can't get it going. And their goaltender is shutting things down and they're losing 2-1 games. What about Jake Ottinger? That would be something special if Jake Ottinger takes his team to the Cup finals and they can't put up goals for him.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. I don't think it will happen. If we're talking about Dallas, I don't think they're going to go through a goal drought for too long in the playoffs. Too deep, too many guys that can put the puck in the net. So I don't see them going in a 7-game Stanley Cup final and scoring 16 goals in 7 games. Like, I think they'd lose some 4-3, 5-4 games. So that's my take. I just wouldn't bet it again because it just happened last year and it's so rare. We're going to move to the fantasy corner now, and we're going to look forward to the playoffs. Who are your best fantasy ads for the first round of the fantasy hockey playoffs?
When I look at this section, I mean, best ads for the fantasy hockey playoffs. I think you got to look at a guy like Brian Rust. He's someone that I'm looking at because you know what? I think certain teams are going to just go out with pride. They're going to go out there, and I think it's hilarious because the Penguins are going to end up
too. He's been producing lately.
They're going to end up in the middle ground, George. They're not going to get a good draft pick. They're not going to make the playoffs. It's going to be hilarious with them. But Yeah, and it's just last handful of games alone, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points overall. He's in the plus department, so I like him quite a bit. One guy doing extremely well that makes you just absolutely shake your head what's going on. If he's available in your league, I would try and roster him. That's Dylan Holloway. In his last 8 games, he has 13 points. He's been putting up some numbers, that's for sure. And one other guy that I noticed for shocking reasons is not that rostered, and I think it's because there's so many superstars and star players around him, but that's Jonathan Drouin from the Avalanche.
Wow, you managed to get another Nova Scotia, maybe not
He's
from
not a
Nova
Nova
Scotia,
Scotian.
but played for the Mooseheads for 3 years. This should be titled the Nova Scotia Hockey News Cheat Sheet Show today.
Well, he's playing on the Av. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I
You're
couldn't
right.
believe
You're
it.
right.
I
That
looked
is
at it.
surprising.
But if Holloway's not there, Broberg is another option. Let's just go with both those guys, Broberg or Holloway.
Take
If
the
you want to
offer
get
sheet,
one of those
guys.
two.
Great move by the Blues. Really paying off this year.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then conversely, tell me about your best drops for the first round of the fantasy hockey playoffs.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to talk about my Nova Scotia bias, I'm going to pump the tires for the Canadians. I'm going to keep making fun of the Maple Leafs. I'm going through all the Andrew checklists here. We got to talk about just tossing Morgan Riley to the curb. There are so many more defensemen that could be on your team besides that guy. This guy makes number 1 defenseman money. He's supposed to be a number 1 defenseman on this team. He is not that. I am tossing this guy to the curb. I don't like him right now. This is a guy that's in the minus department more than he's in the plus. He's got zeros next to a lot of his stats. I think you can find defensemen that are going to produce more down the stretch than he will produce. Here's a guy that's owned quite a bit and rostered in quite a bit of leagues, but I don't think this guy's going to produce down the stretch. That's Jonathan Marchessault. He's got zeros next to a lot of columns when goals, assists, plus minus is not very good for him. So I'm not really high on that. And the last guy I'm going to say is Chris Kreider. I mean, we kind of talk about it every week on the show, but the New York Rangers, man, on paper, on stat sheets, this is a really good team. Those guys aren't producing. You can find better players on worse teams for fantasy value to kind of try and win your league in late in the season here.
Yeah. Morgan Riley had a goal taken away the other night. Probably should have counted a poor goaltender interference challenge.
Oh, yeah.
That got turned around. So that's all I'll put on Morgan Riley. But anyway, fair points by you on all. Thanks again, Andrew. For Andrew McInnis, I'm George Nassios. This has been another episode of the Hockey News Cheat Sheet brought to you by Stix.com. That's Stix.com. See you next time.